I think I was 9 years old when I discovered boxing. I was snooping through my dad's long, mysterious VHS collection. I picked a random tape and I fed into the VCR. A guy named Mike Tyson popped up on the screen. I thought this was so cool. I didn't know what I was watching, but I knew it was fighting, and they weren't getting in trouble for it. Actually, the better they fought, they got rewarded. Hand raised, people cheering, their name being celebrated. I thought, this is great. This is what I've been missing. Why hasn't anyone told me? So I wanted more. Tape after tape. Men of all sizes and skin color, all fighting but so differently. And trust me, I knew because I was imitating all of them and it was not easy. Then I stumbled upon a home grainy tape and I see these young guys in headgear fighting, and the one boxer in particular was pretty damn good. And then I'm hearing familiar voices behind the camera cheering and celebrating, and then when the fight was over and his hand was raised and headgear taken off, I recognized certain features and the eyes, just longer hair, a leaner frame. And then the mustache was what really gave it away. It was this guy. And I thought, damn, Dad used to box and he was good. How did I not know about this? So I just became obsessed and I started digging more and more into his fight collection. And some of the names of the fighters I couldn't pronounce, but I tried, and let me tell you, boxing not only introduced me to a form of fighting, but it expanded my vocabulary. I suddenly became aware of Dad's library of books and magazines, all boxing, and I started learning and stealing words and phrases from legendary fight journalists and incorporating it into my grade 3 book reports. Teacher said, whatever he's reading, keep reading. It's working. No problem. Hyperfixation. And I became a statistician. My dad brought me to the Hall of Fame, 10 years old. I'm staring Willie Pep in the eye. You had 229 wins, 11 losses, 1 draw, only 65 knockouts. You were stopped 6 times. Okay, that's enough. He knows more about me than I do, he said. He was right. I cleaned up at trivia shows, outsmarting grown men. I got myself a summer job, freelancing for a boxing website. So the next step was to do the real thing, box. I mean, how hard could it be? I'm already an expert. I had a base in karate, a scrappy blue belt at the time. One problem, no boxing gym. Dad was one of my senseis at the time, and he says, Tony, you have karate. You'll be a black belt like Bruce Lee. Actually, Bruce Lee practices Jeet Kune Do and doesn't believe in belts, but okay, good enough. I'll compromise. In comes Paradise Fitness, 1998. Looking to offer a wide range of fitness programs, one of them being boxing. And the owner heard through a friend of a friend that local barber George Lewis used to box and was something at one time. So the owner tracked him down with no cell phone. Can you imagine? So he was offered a part-time gig 2 nights a week, and I thought, well, this was, it's been written. I have to go. It was meant to be. So 2 nights boxing, 2 nights karate, soccer in the summer. Parents kept me busy. I wonder why. The boxing program kept growing. Interest was increasing, and members were developing into something more than just members. One of those members was me. Except now the schedule was conflicting with karate, and I had to choose. Well, the choice was easy. Ditch the gi and give me the gloves. In my mind, I felt karate was put in my life to instill the discipline, work ethic, and foundation I would later need for boxing. I was right, but no one else knew that in 1998. Also, juiced up bodybuilders kept crashing the gym after class, wanted to lace up the gloves with the coach. The gym owner encouraged it, the coach accommodated it, and I watched. I knew what was going to happen. Then Mom found out why I was coming home late on school nights and I couldn't go for a while. So back to karate. But I didn't let up. I began inventing a game at home where I would whip a tennis ball at the stairs and it would come back to me. I had to catch it. At first, I was trying to be like my favorite goaltenders, Patrick Roy and Jose Theodore. Then I realized, hey, this is good reflexes for boxing. If I can't always catch it, I'll slip the ball. Sometimes the ball won. I was driving my mom crazy. And when I wasn't doing that, I was blasting the TV, shadow boxing the fights. When I wasn't doing that, I was reading boxing out loud, displaying my commentating skills for the whole family to hear. It was a full character. When I wasn't doing those things, I was arguing with the commentators on TV, convincing my mother why I was right and the pros were wrong. That led to my mother convincing my father that I could resume boxing. So battle number 1, victory. Battle number 2, convince Dad this wasn't a phase. And there was another underlying issue concerning me wanting to go back into boxing. And I don't know if my father's ever admitted out loud, but I always felt like by me reintroducing boxing into his life was, unbeknownst to me, bringing up some old demons to the surface. See, my father's career was cut short at 19 due to a very serious motorcycle accident. And he never got to live out his dream and fulfill his potential and have the opportunities that I had. So I knew there was some, looking back now, some things that he had to overcome and reface again with me getting into the sport. So he drilled it into me, my father, that the sport, when done correctly, required a lot of sacrifice. And that I wouldn't get to live like other kids and eventually live like other teenagers. I listened, I nodded, I rolled my eyes, then I continued hitting the bag. October 1st, 2000 was my first amateur fight, and I was petrified. All 80 pounds of me. My walk to the ring felt like a walk to my execution. I couldn't believe how scared I was. I mean, I had wanted this. I trained and fought for it, and now I'm terrified. One of my first lessons in controlling my emotions, not letting my emotions control me. It's always been the fear of failing that eats me up. It was never about getting hit or that someone could render me defenseless. It was that feeling that I'll let the moment consume me and forget everything I'm good at and embarrass myself in front of loud strangers. Then the bell would ring. 1, 2, 3 punches thrown, received. And here we go. My first few fights, I would come back to the corner after dominating the first round and gagging over the bucket, ready to vomit. It became a thing in the beginning. If I didn't throw up or come close, I wasn't going to have a good fight. As time went on, I got better at handling the pre-fight anxiety. Several years went by, and over 100 fights later, 7 consecutive provincial titles, one of those being my actual very first performance right here in Cornwall at the Best Western Hotel. I was 15 years old that year, and I became the first boxer in Cornwall since the 70s during the Hilton era to qualify for the Nationals. I also went on to win the Eastern New York Golden Gloves Championship, and I enjoyed a successful stint on the National B team, culminating in winning the Four Nations Cup, beating champions from Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, and being awarded Best Boxer of the competition. Eventually, the requests and questions of turning pro started to roll in. Boxing Canada was sorely lacking in funding, and making the Olympics was beginning to be more of a political challenge than an athletic one. Turning pro was starting to make sense, and we had several good character references from those in the know. And I signed my first contract at 20 years old, making my pro debut for a large promotional outfit in Montreal in May of 2008. The Casino de Montreal became my learning grounds, and I carved a name for myself and won a Quebec title along the way. I was 21 years old, 6-0, a Portuguese and Greek Anglophone, proudly wearing the Quebec lightweight title. My 9th professional fight took place on ESPN2's Friday Night Fights against 29-year-old 30-fight veteran Adrian Valdez. He had just gone the distance with the world champion a couple years earlier. My then promoter believed in my skills, but he didn't believe in my punching power. He didn't believe I would score my first knockout in my bid to win the Quebec title. He was wrong. He didn't believe I would score a knockout in my first real step-up fight on American network television. But in the 5th round, a left hook on the chin proved him wrong again. And not only him, but a family friend as well, who lost a friendly bet, and I got to take his dog home, who became mine for the next 9 years. Rest in peace, Harley, man. I love you. In my 10th professional fight, I took on Adrian Verdugo. We were roughly the same age. He had 13 wins, 11 of them being knockouts, only 1 loss and 1 draw. I used my speed and boxing skills that night to nullify his power, and I dazzled the Montreal crowd in my first co-main event at the Bell Center to take home the win. Roughly a few months later, he went on to go to war with 2-time world champion at the time, Jorge Linares, in a losing bid in a very courageous battle. I fought once more at the Bell Center before severing ties with my Montreal promoter. You see, the skill set I brought at the time was going unappreciated in my eyes. The promoter wanted a knockout artist, French-Canadian knockout artist. My style called for speed more than power, and I could speak French, but I wasn't French. So we went our separate ways, and I fought independently for a year, forming a brief partnership with a gentleman and fellow pro by the name of Ali Nestor. He was forming his own promotional company in Montreal to fund his own career, and I jumped on board for 3 fights. I was selling tickets to make my purses at the time. So again, thank you, Cornwall, for buying tickets. I got paid. The second of those 3 fights being my first main event and first international accomplishment, winning the World Boxing Council's Continental Americas title via first-round knockout. I was now 23 years old and beginning to find my power, settling into the pro ranks. I was also now a world-ranked contender. I made ESPN's top 25 list for 2011 as top boxing prospects to watch. The World Boxing Council voted me their Ambassador of the Year for 2011, and the USA was calling. I fought once more for Ali Nestor, defending my newly won belt in Montreal, scoring another knockout, and then I moved on to sign my first promotional contract in the USA. My American debut started with a bang, another first-round knockout at Turning Stone Resort and Casino, live on Sky Sports Television and streamed internationally. I was an undefeated 15-0 prospect. I had just bought my first home and I was gunning for a world title. I then suffered my first loss in January 2013 on ESPN2 that I needed to experience for my development. See, sometimes you learn more from a loss than a win. I rebuilt. I worked as a sparring partner in Florida for a world champion on 2 occasions. I engaged in 2 training camps in Cuba, where boxing to them is what hockey is to us. Then I came back with 2 consecutive wins, garnering myself a slot on Showtime as a 9-1 underdog against undefeated Ukrainian powerhouse Ivan Redkach for the United States Boxing Association's lightweight title. I was not supposed to make it past the 4th round. To everyone's surprise, we both exchanged knockdowns in the first round, and when I got up from mine is when I first made the transition from a speedy in-and-out fighter to a savvy inside savage. I was giving up too much in height and reach to afford too much time on the outside at the end of Redkach's vaunted power. So I turned the ring into the size of a phone booth, and I gave Redkach the most uncomfortable fight of his career up to that point. In the last round, he barely stayed on his feet. Whoa, wind. But here is where I got my first taste of the business of boxing. Though I shocked the fans and the press and the odds makers, I didn't shock the judges. Redcatch won the decision. However, his stock dropped in victory, my stock rose in defeat. I went on to accept another fight on Showtime on short notice, and this time secured a win against undefeated favorite Wanzel Ellison, reminding media and fans alike that I was still a viable threat on any given night. A few months later, I was offered a big fight on ESPN against the third consecutive undefeated opponent and the next perceived lightweight kingpin, Carl Dynamite Dargan. It was also a shot to win the World Boxing Council's Continental America's title for a second time. Once again, the odds makers felt differently about my chances than I did. 7-1 odds. What they didn't know was that I had the training camp of my life, entered my prime at 27 years old, and a few weeks away from my son being born. I was possessed. I could not lose. I remember standing across the ring from Dargan, at least a dozen members of his entourage mean-mugging, calling me every name and making every threat under the sun. And all I was thinking about is how I could make dynamite blow up in his face. I felt no fear. A power higher than me took over that night and pushed my mind and my body to heights that had never reached before. I was a smart, violent, calculated savage. Humble but confident, clean but aware. I was George, I was Fernando, I was Maria. On that night, I confirmed to the boxing world that I was world class and I belonged with anybody in the world. 10 rounds and 2 knockdowns later. Next up was my first defense of my newly regained title in Hinckley, Minnesota on CBS. The week of the event, I received an even bigger opportunity. Ring, ring. Do you want to fight for a world title in Liverpool, England? It would be on Saturday instead of Friday, so yes, in 4 days, you'd have to fly out tomorrow. Yes. And on April 18, 2015, I have no doubt in my mind, I became a world champion. But for the second time, boxing decided to shoot itself in the foot and raise the other guy's hand. How did I handle it? I fought on for 5 more years, going undefeated in 10 fights, garnered myself several showcase wins on CBS Sports Television. I enjoyed one color commentating gig on CBS in that time. And after years of globetrotting, traveling and fighting all over North America and overseas, I reached a stage where my status called for bringing the show here in Cornwall to you guys. I want to thank my promoter, Liveco Boxing, for sharing that vision and giving my career a second wind. As a kid, other fighters at tournaments and competitions would laugh when they found out where I was from. Oh, Cornwall. No one was laughing anymore. Cornwall was on the map. Other pros wanted to come here to spar and see what Champs East Side Boxing Gym was all about. The little gym that could. Right, guys? My career granted me the privilege to win 2 more regional titles right here in this very arena, becoming the World Boxing Association's North American lightweight champion, giving a 3rd undefeated fighter his first loss, among other wins, winning the World Boxing Council's Continental America's title for a 3rd time, and cementing my status as one of the 15 best fighters on the planet in the lightweight division. Since that time, my journey has taken me from Vegas to New York to right back to where it all started, here. 14 years professionally, 24 years in total, more than half my life I've given my mind, body, and soul to this sport. The sport that demands to be seen not just as a sport, but a lifestyle. Aside from everything I've said today come hundreds and hundreds of experiences, lessons, hardships, success, joy, laughter, heartbreak, blood, sweat, and tears, broken nose, popped eardrum. Hey, I was half deaf, tuned out the crowd. I was able to focus better, actually. Torn rib, broken jaw, deviated septum. I am going to get surgery. My wife Stephanie is all paranoid, thinking she may not love you as much because she thinks the surgery will change my voice. I'm like, no, boxing changed my voice. I'll have my original voice back that God gave me. What's wrong with that? No regrets. And the stories, the stories. Here and on the road. I have one memory in particular, one of the training camps in Cuba. I was jogging down this dirt gravel road with some of my stable mates and some of the kids and the locals from the gym. And I remember goats were literally joining us, jogging with us. And some of the kids had holy running shoes on, torn up sandals, some with nothing on their feet at all, while I have my $300 Reeboks. Just didn't feel right. I couldn't stomach that. So I ditched the shoes, and I told myself for the rest of my time that I'm going to be here, while I go for these runs, I'll be jogging barefoot. If I'm going to train and fight like a Cuban while I'm here and soak up their knowledge and time, I'm going to live like one too. The people you meet, people from all over the world that you'd have no way of connecting with any other way. This sport, it cultures you. This sport also hardens you for the cruelties in life, but it also teaches you compassion when you see another one struggling, and the capacity to problem solve and say, if I can't find a way, I'll make a way. My dad taught me that. Taught me a lot of things, and I'm not here like this today if it's not for him. His love, his time, his sacrifice. I have a hard time even looking him in the eye saying that, because I know I was not easy to raise. No. Hey, I finally got him a Harley. Yeah. Least I could do. Thank you, Mom, for that letter you wrote me. That letter saved me 15 years ago. Little did I know you would be gone shortly after. I know many of you may already know, but I fought my third professional fight 5 days after burying my mother. At the time, it got a lot of acknowledgement and attention from the community as bravery and character and everything else, and I was a fighter's fighter, and I proved my mettle very early in my career. Yeah, all of that, but what it really was, I was a 20-year-old kid trying to survive. The mental health and the grief and the trauma at that time, it was so sudden. I just didn't trust myself at the time on what I would do and how I would cope with that trauma if I didn't have boxing. So believe me, boxing literally saved my life at that time. I just want you to know, Mom, that I kept your letter, and I listened, and I didn't give up. I followed my dream, and I listen to Dad sometimes. I miss you. I wish you could have been here to see me finish the dream. To answer my questions, I have a lot of questions. Questions I didn't have the maturity or the wisdom to ask back then. But it's okay. You've answered me in other ways. You put Stephanie in my life, and I see you when I look into my little boy's eyes, truly. I'm tired, guys. Last weekend, I lost to a very good fighter. But a fighter I would have had the legs to hold off and beat a few years ago. I'm not shaking punches off the way I used to. And I will not let the sport retire me. I will retire from the sport. I will not become an opponent and allow younger fighters and lesser fighters and promoters use my name as a stepping stone to build up someone else's resume. No. For 14 years, I dedicated myself to being the best professional athlete I could be, while being a full-time college student, a decade-long career as a youth caseworker, working shifts round the clock while maintaining a world-class training regimen. So tell me again what your excuse is. Years I will always cherish, by the way, and the friendships and bonds that I created with youth and co-workers alike, from Cornwall to Akwesasne to Cree Nation. I love all of you. These last 2 years, I've transitioned to work in security at the dam. Hi, what's your name? Who's your sponsor? Don't have one? Get out. Close his gate. No. You can fish here, not there. Park there, not here. Want to learn about the dam? Visitor center, that way. Leash your dog. I've worn a lot of hats. But it's been far from easy to balance. But I did it because I loved it. All of it. But, like Mickey says in Rocky 3, it's time to slow down and get civilized. Always a fighter. But next time you see me in the ring, I'll have a bow tie on. Or maybe near a ring with a headset, calling the action from ringside. As a matter of fact, that's not a maybe. I've just agreed to work as a color commentator, fight analyst for a platform I can't announce just yet. Details to follow, but my first 2 official gigs will be starting September 9th and 10th. Details to follow. Matt Veenstra, Russ Amber, Angelo Scanga, Joe Bowman, Luke Chisholm, Jesse Thompson, the Wahid family, Kieran Kennedy, Big Sammy, Brian DeCola, Jamie Sege, Thomas Irvin. I know I'm forgetting some, but at one point or another, these were all coaches, stablemates, friends, brothers. All played vital roles in my journey. I'm alone in the ring, but I'm not alone. We all have our time. I had mine. I've made peace with it. And I can live with myself and be grateful. And to be grateful is to be happy. It's time for me to devote more of myself into other things I'm good at. A father, a husband, and whatever else life has in store. But believe me, whatever life calls for, I will be there to answer the bell. Dad, it's time for you to be my dad again. Thank you.